Good evening, everybody. This is Darius Assemi, your host at GVWire Unfiltered. Good evening and welcome to another great episode tonight, along with my co-host, Director of News, Vice President of News, Bill McEwen, and my co-host, Council President, Mike Carbasi. Let's put Mike on the screen. There we go. Mike, good evening, Mike. Um, okay, let's dive right in. We have several hot topics to review with you, but one of the hottest topics is going to be the fantastic weather in front of us. Look at that. Today being the hottest day of the week, getting into the 80s here quickly over the next few days. Fantastic Fresno, beautiful fall weather. By the way, uh, welcome to fall. Equinox yesterday, second day of fall. Fall is here, Californians. When does winter start in 2025? Well, we got some number of days, maybe 90 in front of us. Should the government have the power to penalize TV networks that criticize or do not favorably portray our president, President Trump? So 65% of you said no, networks should have freedom of speech. There's another article coming up on this that Bill is going to discuss. So far this year, Americans and businesses have paid about 2.8 trillion in taxes and fees. Which area do you believe should receive the largest share of this funding? There it is. Over a third of the respondents said Social Security and retirement programs. That makes me think that most of the folks that are actually responding to our surveys are older folks that qualify kind of in that bracket. That's in my opinion. So I'm not trying to be make any other conclusions that other than that's pretty interesting. Interest on federal debt. Um, we should reduce the federal debt and reduce the interest rates so that the interest will not be as high. National defense and military. That tells us that a lot of folks, 1 out of 5 folks, believe we should spend more money on national defense and our weapons. Healthcare is not that high, folks, and education is kind of at the bottom. So education and healthcare, most of the respondents at least go, it's not that important. Where your money does go. This is Bill is gonna discuss this with us today. Bill, take it away.
So, Darius, you'll notice that where your money goes actually kind of lines up with where the respondents to our polls said it should go. Um, Health and Human Services is number one at 27%. Social Security Administration, 23%. I think in our poll, we combined Human Services and Social Security. So that's interesting to me. We didn't put Department of Treasury on the poll, but that's debt retirement. It checks in exactly at 21%. We spend 12% on defense, national defense. So respondents actually want more of it spent there. And then you can see on down the line, 5% for Veterans Affairs. We know we should be doing a better job for our veterans. That should be higher, in my opinion. Ag, the promotion of the growing of products, subsidies to help farmers, and then also to market their crops, takes up 3% of our budget, 2% for education. So I think that's interesting because President Trump's made such a big deal about it, and yet it's only 2% of the budget. And transportation gets 2%, Homeland Security 2%. Remember, this is where your money is gone in 2024. I'm sure Homeland Security will be bumped up next year.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, for that. Now getting into our some of our Middle East coverage. We have a video from Omar Al-Bustami, Palestinian from Gaza, graphic designer and video editor. And this is a what is it called? Let's give a warning. Some of the images you're going to see from this video are pretty graphic. very brief. Let's show it quickly. This video shows how close folks are, ordinary civilians, and I don't, of course, don't know those folks, but I'm assuming they are. Somebody videoed this, of course, with the internet and the power of TikTok and other. I think this one was on Instagram. Uh, you can see a lot of these images, and a lot of folks are seeing these images worldwide. Uh, Four major Western nations recognize Palestinian state. Israel is furious, of course, while I think United Kingdom is recognizing but Palestine's independence, but simultaneously providing a lot of military and arms to Israel. Uh, there was a video put out which we don't have the rights to play. It's from Al Jazeera. This is one of Mr. Member of the Parliament, Israeli Parliament, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. Some of his comments on an interview said, we paid a lot of money for this war, and now, no kidding, we've done the demolition phase, which is always the first phase of urban renewal. Now we need to build it, and it's much cheaper. And I'm really hoping that he's talking about rebuilding with Palestinians in mind. Not sure exactly what Finance Minister Smotrich had in mind. And then Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a few years ago says Israel should bulldoze an area of the Negev desert and move Palestinians. Jared Kushner says Gaza's waterfront property could be very valuable. This is, I think, from about a year ago. On another note, Orthodox Jews protest in New York against Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu's upcoming United Nations attendance. This happened a couple of days back in front of Israel's permanent mission to the United Nations. Orthodox Jews opposing Israel gather in front of Israel's permanent mission and the Consulate General in Manhattan, which is and New York City, to protest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's planned participation in the 80th session of the UN General Assembly, which begins next week, September 18th. It's a lot of Orthodox Jews, again, New York Jews. Trump's new visa policy inspires mostly sour response from tech firms. And I'm going to put up slide 14. H-1B visas, which if you're an engineer, I'm sorry, Bill, did you have a comment on the previous item?
Yeah, I wanted to say,
Yeah.
I mean, Darius, you're always saying, let's investigate this. And I say, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory, right? You're interested in it. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but you're interested in what people have to say. I'm pretty much anti-conspiracy theories. But in regards to what's happened in Israel, I mean, I think what's happening there is pretty clear. Yes, Israel's response to the Hamas attacks, it was unfathomable, the length of time that it took. I think that Netanyahu welcomed this so he could have a war as a destruction. I think there are plenty of members of his cabinet, which is dominated by far right radical.
I'm sorry, Bill, we have the wrong image on the screen. Okay, got fixed. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
But anyway, it's dominated by far right thinkers. And I agree. I think all along, once the war started, the thought was we're going to be able to use this for expansion. Now, what we're going to tell the world is we're eliminating Hamas, and this is what it takes. But when you have the kind of intelligence network and highly trained military that Israel has, they don't have to blow up Gaza. They don't have to displace all these Palestinians to go in there and root out Hamas. Instead, their tactics are just ensuring that some other group similar to Hamas will rise up and we won't have peace in the area. But it's clear from the remarks that were made in that Algiers in the
Al
interview,
Jazeera, yeah.
yeah, Al Jazeera interview that they view this as an opportunity for the expansion of Israel.
And as we talked last week, Bill, uh, the challenge the world, especially the Middle East, is going to have. You have 2.2 million Palestinians in Gaza and several, 2 to 3 million more on the West Bank. But especially the ones in Gaza, they've been radicalized ever since this war started. Of course, Hamas started it. I want to talk about that here in a minute. But they have nothing to lose now. You're homeless. You've been bombed to death, not to death yourself. Everything around you has been bombed. Your entire area where you used to live has been demolished. We get, an accident happen and 2 streets over, we get frazzled. These guys, we just saw one of the videos, they get bombed daily. So these folks have nothing to lose. And that's part of the challenge. Um, um, okay, let's move on to let's go back to our H-1B visa. Um, and there's a quote from Esther Crawford, technology product leader known for her tenure at Twitter during its acquisition by Elon Musk and her current role at Meta. And that's basically her point about H-1B visas. You want to attract the best and brightest in the world to come here, stay here for a few years, and they have a chance to apply for a permanent residency and not make it expensive for folks, engineers, scientists, to move to the States. Mitt Romney, several years ago, gosh, back in 2012, what did he say? Are we going to attach a green card to everybody that graduates college? We educate people and then we send them home. So uh, obviously they have to be vetted. Bill, you want to talk about Pentagon says press must agree not to disclose sensitive information. Bill, you're on mute, by the way.
We talked about the war in Gaza earlier, and you know, Israel has allowed virtually no coverage of the war by American interests. The few times that were allowed in there, like the New York Times, it's for things that are set up. There's no freedom to report. Israel has to approve everything. And outlets like 60 Minutes and New York Times, they're eager to get something about it. And so they agree to those stipulations. It appears Trump wants to copy that because his Pentagon now says press must agree not to disclose sensitive information. So, how do we learn anything about what's truly going on inside the Pentagon and who gets to decide what is sensitive or not? Well, obviously, in this case, it's going to be the Trump administration. So, this again is a further loss of the First Amendment. And, we're getting into a world in which only Trump's truth exists. How sad is that? And we'll see what kind of pushback there is from the American people. I mean, First Amendment is fundamental to our democracy, and President Trump wants to be the dictator of that.
Okay, Bill, thank you for that. And we have, um, by the way, before we put the next slide up, slide 18, uh, Tucker Carlson has got a 5-part series on September 11th on 9/11. There's a whole series on that. I have not watched, but I've seen the previews. Looks very fascinating on Tucker Carlson network. Uh, let's put up 18. I think this is what Bill you were just talking about.
Well,
Um,
this is a separate issue, and this is the New York Times news analysis. It's written by Peter Baker. Most everybody that's really interested in what's happening in Washington, they know Peter Baker's byline. He's universally respected. And he just points out that, this assault on free speech, it's against those that Trump doesn't like. It's, he definitely is playing favorites here. And again, that's un-American. I mean, we either have free speech or we don't. And, he allows all kinds of so-called hate speech when it's spoken by the right. But he wants to crack down on the hate speech by his opponents. And that leads us into a great column by David French in which he talked about the Charlie Kirk memorial that attracted, I don't know how many people, at least 100,000, maybe 200,000. They filled the football stadium, they filled the hockey arena, they had people outside everywhere. People were lining up before dawn to go into the Charlie Kirk memorial. And Erica Kirk says she forgives the young man that assassinated her husband. And she forgives him because that's what the Bible says to do. And she got tremendous applause for saying that. And then later on, Donald Trump says, well, Erica, I don't agree with you. I hate my enemies. And that also got applause. So how can MAGA Christianity applaud what Erica Kirk said and also applaud what Donald Trump said? And so I would encourage everyone to read this column because it's written by someone who knows the Bible. And he goes through the verses that are often cited in defense of Donald Trump and points out that that's not what those verses mean. It's a real takedown of the Trump agenda, his message of hate, his message of fear. And he wraps up by saying, Christians who applaud Donald Trump, they're taking on his malice. They're just as culpable as he is. It's very thought provoking. And again, I'd recommend everyone to read it, but particularly those who are devout Christians and have supported Donald Trump through all of this.
Thank you, Bill, for
So,
that. Mike, any, I'm sorry, Bill, did you have anything else?
No, that's it. Mike is in the political arena. He's there in the fight, and I'd be interested in hearing his thoughts on free speech.
Mike?
yeah, look, I get it how elected officials will complain, oh, did you read that column? Or, oh, that had such an agenda. But you know what I want? And I want to take this back to the local level. I really want electeds, whether you're at the federal government or the state or especially local, to be afraid of investigative journalism. It's really important. I think what you've seen, in fact, there's this show called The Paper. It's like the successor to The Office, very funny workplace sitcom. I watched the first episode last night, and it's about a struggling newspaper. And it's really sad because we've had that experience in our community. We've a lot, and Bill, you worked for the premier agency, and now you're with the new premier agency in the community. We need stories to come out so people know what's happening because most folks are really, really busy. If government has the power to start censoring what is released, that's a banana republic. I mean, imagine if the mayor of this city had the authority to say, I don't like your article, I'm yanking it off, or I'm cutting off access to you because I don't like what you're doing. I mean, it's just nuts to think that could happen. So I think unfortunately, it seems like that's the trend that we're moving towards. But everybody, Republican and Democrat, have to say, no, that's crossing a line. This is not okay. But we also have to discern there's a difference between media and investigative journalism and entertainment. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people think watching certain news networks, oh, that's information. No, it's really spin. It's just constant spin. I'm talking about the stories that expose bribes, that expose sweetheart contracts, that expose things that should not be happening. And you need local electeds thinking, Well, I could do that, but if I do that, I'm going to be exposed. And what is your tagline? Explore, explain, expose. Losing that exposure is very dangerous for good government.
Great points, Mike. By the way, when you watch some of the previous interviews of Charlie Kirk, he has so many thought-provoking comments on all kinds of issues, local, domestic issues, religious issues, and also Middle East issues about Hamas and Israel and how that war started and how can an organization like Hamas attack Israel without Israel really stopping defending herself or itself at the border for over 6 hours. Yeah, there's a very provocative interview with Charlie Kirk. I think it's several months old, maybe over a year old. Couple of comments, and then we're gonna move on. Unless Mike or by the way, Mike, while we're on at this topic, as soon as I read a couple of these questions, I want to see if there's any update from our beautiful city of Fresno. But first, Cam Malloy, what happened to his signing of so-called bringing back freedom of speech on his first day in office? Bill, you know anything about that, Bill or Mike? I don't remember the president.
No, that was something you talked about during the campaign because we need to be honest. Democrats and the left, especially the far left, ushered this in with cancel culture. We got in a situation in which every one of us, if you're a public figure at all, I would suppose I'm a semi-public figure, all of a sudden you have to weigh every word that you say. You lose your sense of humor because someone could say that's the wrong sense of humor. And we saw cancel culture all over the place. Roseanne got canceled. A lot of entertainers got canceled. We saw politicians who 30 years before at a fraternity event or some kind of a skit don blackface, and all of a sudden they're the subject of controversy and people saying they should be thrown out of office. We had all this going on. And, when Republicans say, hey, Democrats are more worried about pronouns than they are about real problems, that was true. That was becoming true in the Democratic Party. We ushered it in. So President Trump, during the campaign against the vice president, he said, I'm bringing back freedom of speech. What he was saying was, I want to eliminate cancel culture. However, as soon as he got into office, Stephen Miller told him, no, we don't want to get rid of cancel culture. We just want to be in charge of cancel culture. And now we're in charge. And so that's what we're seeing. And I hope that answer is sufficient, Cam.
Thank you, Mike. You had a
Yeah,
comment there.
I've said this before. While the Democrats were in power, cancel culture is the stupidest thing in the world. Life is very complicated. People are very imperfect. But unfortunately, now you see the other side. They believe in fighting fire with fire, so now they're trying to cancel people like Jimmy Kimmel. And I really don't think people actually listen to what he said. Um, it's really just a waste of time. It destroys a lot of innocent people's lives, and you should never be shot or killed or your financial stability destroyed because you exercise your freedom of speech. Now, there's hate speech. There is a line. I understand that. There is, things you can say, but never violence. Never. There's not even a connection there. But we're just in a very volatile time. But here's what I really do believe. You talk about the silent majority. I think a majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle are good, decent people, but you don't hear about them on the entertainment news. They only go to the extremes. The people that would celebrate Charlie Kirk's murder. I think they're crazy for doing that. I think they're wrong for doing that. I would never wish that upon anybody for what they said,
Yep.
especially when all you're doing is you're
Okay.
in public having conversation. But going back to what Bill said, he is correct that we're just in a really crazy time now. The other side, the shoe's on the other foot now.
Okay. Let's
So
move on.
Darius,
Yeah.
Darius,
Quickly though, Mike.
yes, I want to go back to our poll because the respondents to the poll, God, when you add up the two categories there, nearly 90% of them reject this assault on free speech. So And we know politicians sometimes have to react because look at it 65% say no, networks should have freedom of speech. 32.5% say as long as the reporting is accurate, there's no problem. How many polls have we ever put up that's got that kind of universal response? So
97.6%. Okay. Great point, Bill. Inga Schlegel, like Biden's assault on encouraging Trump to be taken
All
off
right,
all social media, free speech, question mark.
let's be very clear. Two wrongs do not make a right. So just because Biden did that, if he did do that, it does not mean President Trump gets a pass. Any president shouldn't be doing that. It doesn't matter who you are. And as a joke to my friends who are Republican, Biden probably didn't know what he was doing anyways, right? You guys always say he didn't wasn't aware of anything. So there you go.
Cam Malloy says it was actually one of his signed bills or whatever he called them that he sat there
Executive
and
orders.
signed for
Okay.
hours. The executive order. Okay. Inga comes a couple comments and then we're going to move on from this topic. I do not see any articles from Just the News or Gateway Pundit on GB Wire. It's mostly New York Times, Reuters, AP, not balanced. Where we are Reuters and New York Times affiliates. Inga, if you have any connections with some of these other outlets that we can connect with, please
I've
direct
never,
message me, and then
you know,
we'll get on that. Well,
I
listen
asked
to it at least.
if I can add something, Darius.
Please.
I asked a friend of mine. You actually know him. He lives in District Two. He's almost 90 now. He used to work in the Defense Department or War Department now, and he was a professor at Harvard. And I asked him, with all the noise out there, and he's very tech savvy at his age, where do you get your news from? Because I'm getting just pummeled with all kinds of crap, and I don't know what's real or not. GV Wire was one of the sources, but he did give me a couple of reliable news sources, very diverse. It wasn't just like one source. He's more of a conservative guy, but it was none of these crazy websites that have no reputation. He was very specific about where he gets his news from because a lot of times people just give just noise and it infects our brains. It really does.
Well, that's good. Feel free to share them with us and also on the air right now if you wanted to.
Well, the ones you talked about, the New York Times being one, the
Yeah.
Washington Post being another, even though he says it's a little bit more left for his nature, it has the inside stuff happening in DC.
Yeah.
He mentioned Cal Matters, Politico, and some of those
Some of the
sources
other
too.
ones. Yeah, we covered
Yeah.
Cal Matters, which is incredible statewide. Okay, we got to move on. Iranian diplomats in the U.S. are barred from shopping at Costco. This was news to me. I saw it tonight right before the show. New York Times had this article. I guess it's retaliation for. By the way, the same is happening with Russian and Chinese diplomats. Uh, that they go, hey, you're starving your people at home. You can't come in here and go shop at Sam's Club or Costco. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Mike, any
Good for
comments on
Costco.
that?
Bravo to Costco. The Iranian regime does not represent our interests as the country. They don't represent the people's interests. And these people, they pillage their countrymen, come here, get an education, have the best life ever while their people are suffering. It's absolutely true.
Okay.
And Darius, just to show that we're fair and balanced, it was the Trump administration that did this. This came out in the Federal Register, new rules governing diplomats from all over the world. And the rationale is exactly what Mike said, that the people in the homelands are suffering. Diplomats go to Costco, get to buy whatever they want at very cheap prices and that kind of thing. And Trump administration said, yeah, it's largely symbolic, but it's important that we do that. So at GV Wire, we give both sides of the story.
Thank you, Bill, for that commentary. U.S. alcohol consumption at record low as health concerns rise. Survey finds 55% in 58% in 2024. It's a percentage of adults that they say they consume alcohol. Um, latest yeah, conducted this survey conducted annually showed that about 54% of Americans report drinking alcohol, compared with 58% in 2024, 62% in 2023. Uh, Newsom signs bill lowering California's retail cannabis tax. California cannabis sales hit 4.7 billion in 24, but black market still accounts for 62% of purchases statewide. Also, Newsom signs new laws targeting immigration officers at schools. Ooh, we have a new assistant for Council President Mike Rabasi.
Sorry.
That was cute. Can we see him or her again?
No, the,
No,
the camera's shy. Sorry about
camera shy.
that.
Okay, what's his
Okay.
name?
Oh, sorry, Rupert.
Rupert. Very cute. Okay. Well, welcome Rupert to the show. A first
Big
appearance.
fan of Unfiltered.
Okay, great, great. Bill, any comment on Newsom signing of new laws targeting immigration officers at schools? That was Assembly Bill 49 and Senate Bill 98. You're Bill. You're
Muted,
on
Bill.
mute.
You'd think I'd learn. So this law targets schools, but also hospitals and other places where ICE agents have been showing up that they haven't in the past. The one on schools puts the onus on the schools that says the schools should not allow the agents to enter. I don't know how the schools are going to be able to stop that. So again, it's largely symbolic. I also want to talk about the mask rule. I mean, the Supreme Court has been clear on this going back to the 1860s or so. You can't stop a federal officer from, doing their federal duties, their assigned duties. And so, again, Newsom these are symbolic. I think they're intended in part to raise his profile as he runs for president in 2028. We report on them because they are California law, but they're going to be the subject of court challenge by the Trump administration.
Thank you, Bill. Protesters rally in Fresno after ABC suspends Jimmy Kimmel. That was outside of ABC 30. Let's put that slide up, please. There it is. Great article, I think by David Taub. Measure C. Fresno COG responds to complaint that Measure C hid public records. Mike, do you have any info on this? Mike or Bill? I really haven't been tracking this. There's so much stuff going on with the committee not getting along, then getting along. Now there's somebody in the committee that's going to file a lawsuit, I hear. Mike, you want to go first?
I'm not surprised. Like when you put that many cooks in a kitchen with their own agenda, nothing surprises me. I think this thing's going to crash and burn.
And that's our half-cent sales tax measure extension that benefits, but it's supposed to all go to transportation, basically. And I've said this on this show many times, it needs to have congestion relief as part of that measure. If some of us in the business community, at least myself, would be supporting it.
That's the
Bill,
point. It
any
all depends
comments?
on what your definition of it depends on what your definition of transportation is. For some people, it's their own agenda. And when voters have to approve it, you should go to the voters and say, what do you actually want to see? Because they're the ones that pay for it and they're the ones that enact it. So I'm just a conventional person. What do I know, right?
No, great points.
So
Bill?
basically, Darius, the nut of this is Brooke Ashton was on this transportation committee, didn't like the way it's going, felt like he wasn't being treated fairly. He dropped out of the committee. He's the chairman of a PAC. It's called Guardians of Growth or Guardians for Growth. And they said, look, you have this subcommittee and they're making a lot of important decisions about the future of Measure C. They're not subject to the Brown Act. We can't see a tape of their meetings. We don't have notes of their meetings. You're making us all mushrooms. You're keeping us in the dark. So he took the complaint to the Fresno County District Attorney's Office. That's where it sits right now. But it's interesting, the response from Fresno COG, from former Mayor Ashley Swearingen, and from Lynn Ashbeck, on the Clovis City Council. They're like, we don't believe it has to be subject to the Brown Act, but if that's what's needed, we'll do it. So we'll see what happens.
Cam has got a question, and I think that's for you, Mike. When you say crash and burn, what do you mean? Will there be multiple measures to vote on now at this point? Mike, will there be
I don't
multiple
know what's
measures?
going to happen. That's the issue. I think we're wasting a lot of time trying to create something that's probably going to resemble what they had a couple years ago. And I don't know how you're going to get popular support for it. They're going to do a 30-year tax now. I don't think the public's going to want a 30-year tax. It's a lot of time when priorities change.
It's a long
I
time.
just,
That is a long
it's a
time.
very long time.
And quite honestly, we don't know what transportation is going to look like 15 or 20 years from now. So, okay.
No, we
Let me see
don't.
it. I'm sorry, Mike. Anything else?
We don't. No, we have no
We
idea
don't
what
know.
it's going to look like or what the priorities of the people paying for it are going to look like.
Okay.
I mean,
No to a 30-year tax, Cam Malloy. Uh, English Legal said, does Newsom have jurisdiction over federal agents? Probably just grandstanding. I think that was Bill's point. Okay, let's move on to the last couple of items, and we're out of here. Approval hurdles for manufacturing hurt Fresno economy. Bill, kind of fill us in on this. There was some panel of experts that were trying to navigate through industrial jobs.
So what we're talking about is we sent Edward Smith to cover the conference. I believe it was last Thursday. And, you had experts testify that Fresno was well below its potential for manufacturing jobs, light industrial jobs, because the regulatory process here is complicated, takes a long time. And meanwhile, we have competitors in Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. And so when companies come in, they take a look at Fresno, they find out how long it would take to get a approval to get the permitting process, and they decide to go elsewhere. And we've even had cases, most notably with the Buceto plant, where they wanted to expand and they got through City Hall, they got their approval, and then the litigation started flying. And they simply decided to go ahead, and this amazes me. They opened a new plant in New Jersey.
Wow.
And,
and
New Jersey's probably not easy when it comes to regulatory hurdles. And they chose New Jersey over Fresno. And so I think the
Mike,
biggest thing that came out of this, Darius and Mike, was Mike Betts, who's just a stand-up guy, very committed to this community, and a prime mover for the last 10 years in creating career technical education pathways of all kinds, and particularly for manufacturing and those kind of jobs. And he says,
okay.
we are graduating these kids that are ready to go to work. We don't have the jobs for them here. And
Mike,
so all
yeah,
of this kind of came together in this meeting.
right.
And what they're asking for is, yes, environmental review, hear from the neighbors, all those things, but why in the world can't we do this in 1 year?
Mike,
all good points. One of the things, if I was at that meeting or conference, I'd love to ask them is, are you referring to red tape at City Hall or litigation? And you talked about litigation. And is it just a California thing? Look at the Costco in my district, for example, went through the entire exhaustive process. Somebody sued, took a shot in the dark, and scored a win. And meanwhile, those jobs are in jeopardy. It happens all the time. And there's been talk about CEQA reform in Sacramento. I haven't seen a lot of action. There's potential, but I am very quick to criticize the city when we mess up, but it's also the environment we in. And you're right, Mike Betts is a very stand-up guy. What I would say to folks that are with the Chamber of Commerce or Building Industry Association or BizFed or all these groups, it's nice when you call me to complain, but I don't see you guys in the trenches fighting this issue. So you know who is fighting? All the social justice groups that are well funded by dollars from out of state to stop any progress. And they're winning. And now you're complaining. I get you're upset. I'm upset too. Those are jobs and tax dollars we drastically need. But
Eh,
you've got to start fighting. And they don't. They just have their mixers and think they're doing a great job.
So, Mike, to be fair, this issue was raised, and that was one of the solutions that was pitched at this conference. In fact, it was said the environmental justice groups, they're running circles around us and we're not doing anything. They said we need to get in the arena and we need to have an impact on what's going on. We need to be out there fighting and not just relying on our local leaders to carry this fight for us. So your point, they've heard it in the business
Great.
community.
Thanks.
Now let's see if they're going to do something about this. But one thing I do have to bring up, I just heard this afternoon. Uh, Bill, we need to talk about this tomorrow. Then NEM, net metering 2.0, which is supposed to expire April 17th of next year. I just heard today CPUC, because of pressure from GV Wire and its readers, that's in my opinion, uh, is moving the deadline to, I think it's February of 2027. Which, if
That's
that
great.
in fact is true, I just heard this from one of our contractors. We're going to investigate this. If that is true, that's really, really good news for new home buyers in Fresno. And I know Mike uh, was putting a lot of pressure on PG&E to make sure they cooperate with Fresno homeowners as they're moving in, to make sure the power is turned on and the rates are reasonable for our residents.
This is
Mike,
huge
any
when it comes
comments on
to
this? Yeah.
yeah, this is huge when it comes to affordability. Bill talked earlier about, the Democrats lost the election because they stopped focusing on the issues that matter. Affordability is a big deal right now, especially in California. And so you get roped into solar, not just in your case by a mandate as a new homeowner, but with the promise of savings, and they want to take that away from under you. So I'm so glad. This is what I'm talking about. When you said earlier, put pressure, when people put pressure, like on government taking over media, pressure works. The CPUC is this crazy independent group that is unelected. And the fact that they're able to get them to relent is a very big accomplishment. So to all the groups that advocated, good job. You've just saved millions of dollars for California consumers. Darius, you're muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. That's part of our democracy. And I'm so excited that our elected officials and or appointed policymakers are paying attention. And last item, uh, Shana Tova, a Jewish New Year reflection on forgiveness and Israel, article by David Taub. Um, uh, and of course, we happy Rosh Hashanah to all of our friends, Jewish friends, um, and Christian friends, and anybody that does celebrate the Jewish New Year, which basically coinciding with the first day of fall. Anything else, gentlemen? Eh, Mike, what's going on at City Hall?
Yeah, so council meeting this Thursday. Tomorrow, a little preview. We do have a press conference to talk about. We're unveiling all of our firefighter engines and trucks and battalion chief vehicles and medical squad cars are all going to be equipped with ballistic helmets and vests. And this is a measure from a couple years ago. I got money in the budget for this, and the real goal was if there's ever an active shooter situation or crazy situation where they have to stage, they will be protected. And the real goal is not just to save their lives, but increase their ability to protect lives of people in active shooter situations, because those precious moments matter. That's going to be a press conference tomorrow in the morning. Other things happening at City Hall. We did just score a large victory. There was a lawsuit that we had to initiate with other cities regarding our federal funding for the airport primarily and other units. Regrettably, we had to sue the administration. It was never about trying to play politics. It was about us protecting our funding. Congress allocated the funding for us. And we just found out a few moments while I was on the show that we actually did score a very large victory in the restraining order to get the government to to prevent them from clawing back that funding that Congress appropriated to us.
That's awesome, Mike. What about? I see a lot of pavement all across town.
Yeah. Oh,
Tell us
I
about
forgot
that.
that.
What's
Yeah,
happening
you're right.
there?
Yeah. So we talked about Measure C, right? We can't wait forever for this to get sorted out. So mayor and council had an initiative called Pave Now, Pay Later, and it's $100 million bond to improve roads and sidewalks throughout the city of Fresno. For example, in Northwest Fresno, Shaw Avenue is going to have a lot of new, very soon, are going to have a new road surfaces put out there. McKinley by the
Whereabouts?
airport,
Whereabouts on Shaw? Because I use Shaw frequently.
Brawley to Blythe. That's
Okay.
going to be redone.
How
There
about the
are other
Blackstone?
parts.
Blackstone area?
We're going to get rid of roadway in Blackstone. Don't you know? No
Oh,
more cars on Blackstone. No, I'm kidding. I don't support that.
no, no.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Parts of Shields are underway today. But all with this pave. Here's the advantage of this. Look, we can borrow this money. We can do it at a very low interest rate because we are a very strong, fiscally conservative city. We're very strong in our finances. And here's the advantage. You know this in building, how much more things are now than they were 5 years ago. And that
Yeah.
inflation is not going away. So yes, we take on the debt, but we're paying today's prices. So the good news is we have a low interest rate. We'll pay those bonds back, and we get the benefit today of safer roads.
Construction cost, at least for apartments, is 50% more today than in 2019.
Yeah.
Residential construction
Unbelievable.
is not 50, but it's close to that number. 50% more
In 6
than
years.
in 6 years, 5.5 years.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, anything else on your end?
Yeah, I just want to say a few words about Steve McGarrian, who passed away on Monday. You know, he was a sheriff of another era, but also a politician of another era. He was a Republican, but he's what I would call a reasonable Republican. He treated everyone with respect and warmth, and he was a three-term sheriff, and he did a great job. And he actually, under his leadership, the department adopted technologies well before departments, not just in California, but throughout the nation. That was a plus. I think people will remember the Ewell family murders, and the department had to make a great commitment in resources and time and budget to see that through. It involved undercover work. It involved extensive forensic evidence analysis. That one of the detectives came up with the idea of cloning Dana Ewell's pager, and they got a court to sign off on that. And so every time he got a page, they knew about it. And, you know, they were able to take this case to the district attorney and get a conviction. Dana Ewell and his accomplice, the actual trigger man, both received life sentences. I wrote Mr. McGarrian's obituary, and you know, we have comments from Austin Ewell on how much the family appreciated the support of the department during that time. You have to remember this was a case that made national headlines. It was reported on by papers all across the country. It's been the subject of countless documentaries. And, you know, law enforcement, sometimes you have a case like that, you don't ever want to screw it up, and they didn't. They did a fantastic job on it. And then finally, he was brought home from the hospital so he could be with his family at home at the end. They took a detour and they went out to the Sheriff's Memorial that's going to open up next month. And Steve's goal had been to make it to the ribbon cutting. And clearly, he wasn't going to be able to do that. He was in the last days of his fight with cancer. And so American Ambulance took him out there to the memorial. They brought him out of the ambulance on a gurney. Former Sheriff Mims was there, and they took him by the statues, which are in place. And very emotional moment for everybody out there. And as Sheriff Mims said, you know, it was so great to do that for him. And just I wish more of our local leaders took on Sheriff McGarrian's tone and adopted his practices.
Thank you, Bill, for that. Mike, any comments on that?
Yeah, we're actually going to adjourn our council meeting in his honor this Thursday. And I just spoke to him about 3 weeks ago. I never got to serve as an elected official when I was a kid, when he was the sheriff, but he was just a real gentleman. I ran into him last time in person when I was taking my dad to a doctor's appointment, and he was there too. And he just was so kind to my father, and that's just the kind of person he was. Character counts, right? And
Exactly.
he's just a good man, and wish his family well right now.
Anything else, Mr. Bill?
No, I think
Kamaloy.
that does it.
Okay,
Just thanks for a great night of discussion.
Kamaloy and Inga Schlegel say thanks for sharing this bill. Inga says that's great, Mike. That was further back, and I'm not sure what that was referring to. I think that we're clear with 7 minutes to go. A lot of great articles on GB Wire. By the way, I don't know if those of you that try to get on the feed on our feed on the website was not working tonight. I don't think it's still working. So, um,
They're
oh,
they're already
okay. Paul is
censoring us,
telling me that
Darius.
it
I'm
is
telling
on
you.
actually. What is
We
that?
pissed someone off. They're already censoring us. First Jimmy Kimmel, then Darius Assemi. Something's going on, man.
Okay, for some reason it's
Okay.
not showing up on my feed, but anyhow, uh, Mike, thank you. Any final words, Mike?
No, just again, please tune in this Thursday 9 a.m. City Council meeting. You can watch it on YouTube. It'll be an interesting meeting, and we'll have a report next week about some of the things we've done.
Okay, awesome. Thank you,
Right.
Mike. Thank you, Bill, and thank you to
Thank
our
you.
audience. Have a great week. Be safe. Enjoy the fantastic weather, typical Fresno weather in the fall over the next 7 days, and see you all next Tuesday evening. Thank you and good night.